Really just gonna go over like safety, car setup, cooling, how to get yourself comfortable in the vehicle. So this is really critical if you're looking at building a drift car or in the process of building one right now. So safety, very critical. We're doing a dangerous motorsport. Stuff happens. Drifting is one of the safer motorsports. That's actually one of the reasons I kind of first chose it to really get into. Didn't want to lose my life. But a roll cage or a roll bar, at the very least, you absolutely need it. I understand just getting started and you're the only car on the track, not having a roll cage. I understand it to a degree, but honestly, even still, you could roll over, like shit happens. So at the very least, get a 4-point roll cage, as well as gives you a good spot to mount your harness on. It doesn't need to be Formula Drift spec or quite as crazy as this roll cage. We've added on like the rally pillars and wheel intrusion bars, but 6-point is basically the main hoop with the down bars. That's your 4-point, and then having these A-pillars that come all the way together, and then attaching them with some door bars. So that's like your basic 6-point cage. Next would be a good seat. Believe it or not, a seat is really gonna make a difference. And assuming you're the main person usually driving your car, just get it set for where you like being comfortable and leave it. You don't necessarily need like a full halo driver seat like this. This is a little overboard. This car, just before moving forward, this car was built as like our backup Formula Drift car. So some of the stuff is a little above and beyond what most people are gonna need. You can get non-FIA, you just won't be able to use it in like competition or things like that, but as long as it's from a reputable brand, it's still gonna be just as safe. But a nice bucket seat's gonna keep you planted and keep you stuck there if you get in a crash. Seatbelt is so critical. Please don't just get a 4-point, get at least a 5-point or a 6-point. There's not a huge difference between 5 and 6-point. This is called the anti-submarine belt. You basically either have 2 that kind of wrap your legs or 1 going down the middle. 2 is a little step safer. The reason why anti-submarine is super critical, and I never recommend 4-point belts, is it's pretty self-explanatory in the name, submarine. So in the event of a crash, you'll literally go out under the belts and into there, and it's gonna be a gross mess. Please get at least a 5-point belt. Again, get it from a reputable company. Doesn't need to be FIA, which kind of brings you to the next one, a good steering wheel. Depending on the vehicle that you have, I really prefer these kind of deep dish wheels. They put them a little bit closer to you than a stock steering wheel would be. You're really looking to have this part of your arm be 90 degrees. So whether it's like here or up here, doesn't necessarily matter, that's preference, but you don't want to be driving, you know, like a loco way back, all gangster, and you definitely don't want to be right up here either. So just look for 90 degrees right there, and you can kind of have it wherever you want. Some type of steering wheel, not eBay crap. We've seen those break. It does happen, believe it or not. This is super critical. A lot of these things are, but for real, get some type of fire extinguisher in your vehicle. We have a fire suppression system. That's a lot more money and more complication, but it is a lot safer. So if you're doing like a full build, do a fire suppression. If you can't afford it or aren't ready to, you know, pull a trigger on that, at the very least get a 2-pound fire extinguisher. Weight is awesome because it literally affects every part of your performance. It affects your acceleration, which way do you want to go? Less weight the better, pretty much, like for drifting at least. So at least with this car, we pulled out all the air conditioning, the heating, the radio, gutted the door panels, got rid of the glass, got rid of all like the floor matting, the headliner, all that stuff. So that's believe it or not, a ton of weight. It really all adds up. Speaking of weight, you can take it even a little level further. Lexan windows are really good. This car, we just put Lexan windows all around. Side windows don't weigh all that much, but these rear windows and especially windshields are so heavy. They're like 40, 50 pounds. It's a good thing to do. As well as gutting your trunk, that kind of goes in with the interior, but take your damn spare tire out of there. So we actually did a video on drift missiles, so you can check that out. In Ibisu, some of these guys are like just out of control. They'll literally have their trunk full of stuff, full of their jack, their tools, things like that. Get all that stuff out of there. Not only is it extra weight that you're just carrying around for no reason. I actually saw one guy that had all that stuff in, his trunk flew open and stuff went flying all over the track. Fortunately, no cars or anyone got hit, but it's just ridiculous. Another thing you can do, we didn't do, but carbon trunk, that can save a little weight. I would say more critical than a carbon trunk though, would be a carbon fiber hood. That can actually be worth a lot of weight savings. And it's really nice because it is on the front end. So that's gonna help a little bit with getting some of that weight shifted to the rear end, which with drifting, we're kind of looking for 50-50, but we definitely don't want it super front end heavy. That's not ideal. So carbon hood's kind of an easy one. Engine, power, and honestly, more ideally at this point, reliability. You're probably gonna be mostly good with what you have, but there are some little things you can do that may not be too expensive. One of the biggest ones, you can't see it, getting rid of your coolant, going to distilled water and water wetter. So if you want more detail on that, just search up water wetter. Another obvious one is upgrade your radiator, and we have an upgraded fan on here that gives like 60% more airflow. So we've had really good luck with that. Pretty much for any vehicle, you should be able to find an upgraded radiator and fan setup. That's one though that I would do the water wetter and distill water first, and then go kind of watch your temps. Make sure you have a coolant gauge and or water temp gauge rather, and just kind of watch it. I wouldn't blow a bunch of money on that if you don't need it. Your amount of coolant needed kind of will go up with your power level, right? Look at your intake coolant temps if you're a turboed car. So a larger intercooler is gonna help. Intake filter, any decent quality air filter will work, and that's easy, free power, and is gonna keep it from sucking crap in there. Another little hack for cooling is actually a water sprayer kit. So you can just search like intercooler sprayer, radiator sprayer, water sprayer kit for cars. That's kind of an easy Band-Aid, as well as an addition if you've already done all these cooling things and you're not getting enough cooling. So this is more on the engine power side, not as much to the reliability. It doesn't really do much for reliability, but exhaust system. Don't need to get anything fancy, but the more air you're moving through it, generally the more power it's gonna make, especially if you have a huge ass stock muffler, Cadillac converters, all that. Wheels and tires. Really preference in a lot of ways, but you want to get the right sizes so that it will allow you to get tires that are cheap and available. Don't necessarily need 3-piece, just don't run stockies. That's kind of the main thing. Wheels are also a place where you can save weight, which is an awesome place to save weight. These are not doing us any benefits there. As far as tires, for the rear, these really do depend on your power level in a lot of ways, kind of the size you want to go. By the way, this is like the most stretch I would ever recommend running for drifting. Tire stretch is basically running like a smaller width tire than is built for the wheel. So that's kind of how you get this like rounded effect. That truly is for fitment and style. And this is the most I would run. Depending on your power level, you'll be somewhere in like that 205 to 255 range. And just get cheap Chinese tires, okay? Delentis, Ironman, non-Kang. Don't necessarily need to be Chinese tires, but just cheap ass tires, honestly. So moving on to the front, grip is critical here. This isn't great outer fitment, but it's as good as we can get with the WiseFab and these cheapo front fenders. Suspension. Let's start off with the coilovers. So you want something adjustable. We really prefer feel suspension. You want something with, you know, a coilover spring where you can adjust the preload and then also adjust the height separately. And then angle kit. This is top of the line WiseFab. That's like full-on competition, as crazy as you can go. That's not necessary for when you're getting started out, but if you want to ball out. The nice thing is you can kind of start out with just a modded knuckle and then extend your lower control arms, do rack offset, you know, a rack adjustment, either moving it forward or backwards depending on what vehicle you have. And with just stock steering angle, you're gonna have a lot of trouble really getting into a drift and kind of experiencing what's needed to control it. Once you can drift a car with stock angle just fine, but it gives a kind of a steeper learning curve with no angle kit at all. So I apologize for how dirty this car is. We drive it a lot, so we haven't had a chance to kind of clean everything underneath here. But moving to the rear end, you don't necessarily need all adjustable links, but enough adjustable links where you can get the alignment set where you want it. Front end alignment is really depending on what steering system you have. There's a lot of information out there depending on your steering system, kind of what alignment you want for the front. The rear though, at least in our experience, is fairly universal. We always look for zero camber, so we don't want to run that crazy rear camber. I know it looks sick and hella flush boys love it, but for drifting it sucks. You get shitty tire wear. Go zero camber. That's going to give you the most grip out of your tires. I would personally start with zero toe. As you get a little bit better and you want a little bit more grip, you can do some toe in. That's going to help your car kind of charge forward and grip more when you're on throttle. But I would start with a very neutral setup. Zero camber, zero toe, get that full tread patch. That's going to help you get the most use out of your tires and the most grip you can. Sway bars in the front. We don't have any sway bar. Some of the cars we do. Rear end though, really nice to have. A lot of times your stock sway bar is actually going to be more than enough. On this one, we actually took a stock sway bar and modified it. These are just like water jetted little plates where we can kind of adjust on the fly to get stiffer or softer sway bar settings. You got that motor that you're stuck with. Hopefully you have a manual transmission. Automatic will work for a while, but manual is preferable. One-piece drive shaft. If you're lucky enough that your vehicle comes with a one-piece drive shaft, then great. Just leave it until you need a beefier one for your power level. But if you have a two-piece drive shaft, a one-piece is really going to help you transfer all the power you do have to the back end and get rid of some of that slop. Most of us have a drive shaft shop around the corner that can build a really cheap one-piece drive shaft. I'm talking like 150, 200 bucks. So that's a cheap, easy mod. Open diff is just not gonna fly. But an easy mod to do, like we've done on this car, is just welding the diff. Welding your diff, you're basically just welding all the spider gears up and making it so that the axles can't spin independently. Just locking that whole rear end up. Also, while we're back here, doing some solid subframe mount for the bushings on the subframe, as well as solid subframe or solid mounts for the diff is really good. So these are just literally ran up right to the diff. Sometimes you need a little bushing depending on the vehicle. But getting rid of all those rubber bushings just helps stiffen everything up, make sure that the power you do have is getting to the rear tires and you're not losing it anywhere else. So kind of the only last one for the drivetrain, right? Goes engine, transmission, drive shaft, diff, axles. We just run stock axles, honestly. That's usually more than fine for most power levels. That's another thing where it's like, once they kind of start breaking, then start upgrading them. Don't go crazy spending a bunch of money on fancy axles when you don't need them. Your money is better spent elsewhere. Spend it in your suspension, spend it in making yourself comfortable and safe. Or spend it in making your car stylish. That's a good option too. As long as your car has a stock handbrake, like a parking brake, and you can tighten it up and get the rear wheels to lock, you're really good to go. But if you want a little better lock, something more reliable, I really would recommend going with a hydraulic handbrake. There's kind of two versions. You can do inline. Inline, basically, you just still use the stock caliper, and you put the hydraulic handbrake in line with the rear caliper systems. The kind of next upgrade, something they require in a lot of competition series, mostly the professional ones, is a dual caliper. Again, this is something like a stock handbrake you can go so far with. Like in our Laurel, we ran stock handbrake for like the longest time. And when this car was my Ibisu car, it was stock handbrake. So it's really not until you get at a higher power level and you really feel like you're efficient with that handbrake and you just need that little extra, kind of improvement with it, then go dual caliper and spend the money. The reason why this is more ideal than inline is because they're separate systems. So if the handbrake system were to fail, you still have your brakes, or vice versa. If your brakes failed, you still have your handbrake. It's just a safer, more reliable system. All right, guys, this is a bonus one, but style. This is, I think, super critical. I'd put it almost as important as safety and having the car function right. Not more important though, which some of you guys would, I understand that, but I really look at them as getting the car to drift well and be safe, and then style is like, they're just kind of get them both as good as they can be. Not one's really more important than the other. Style is really, it's an expression of yourself, right? And so the cool thing is, depending on what vehicle you're running, it may already be stylish just because of the choice of chassis you used. And then you can kind of pair it with whatever different body kits you want, hoods, wheels, paint jobs, liveries, all sorts of stuff. We like having fun with it. I do think it's important at the very least to have your car all one color, not having all sorts of different color body panels all beat up. This is as beat up as we like to get them. So not happy about that, but it's okay. It really is personal taste, right? I can't tell you necessarily how to be stylish or what you need to do to have a stylish car, and I don't even want to do that necessarily, because that's really like someone with a large ego would do that. That's not me. If you put effort into your car looking good, that's gonna go everywhere. If your car looks good, and that all is gonna lead to you being a little bit better driver and just having a better, well-built, reliable car, because you're putting some money and effort into having it look good. You're also gonna have put money and effort into having it run good and perform well. So there's a lot more detail we could go in on each one of these aspects, but we wanna hear from you guys. So this was kind of, we just went over all the high-level details of the entire car. Comment below and let us know what details you guys would like us to talk more about, and we'll put them in the next video for you guys. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button. We'd really appreciate it, and we'll see you in a couple more days.